Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I am going to share a screen, so hopefully you all can see that now. Perfect. And today I'm going to be speaking mostly in regards to our summer global internships that we offer here at CIEE, but we do also offer a version of the program in the semester as well. But because I know most students right now are kind of thinking ahead to summer, I'll focus there a bit. And so I do welcome folks to utilize the Q&A or the chat throughout the conversation so I can tailor the content to what is of most interest to you. Feel welcome to utilize that chat to just introduce yourself, and if you have any particular questions or interests that you want to make sure that I touch upon today. So without further ado, we'll get started. So why should you think about doing an internship abroad? This is kind of the first question to ask yourself. So if you're thinking about, doing a program abroad, I invite you to reflect if your goals are more aligned with professional development and building your resume, or if your goals are more aligned with academics and culture. Not to say that any program can't mix all of these together, but I would say if your goals are more aligned with professional development and building your resume, then a global internship program is going to be a best fit for you. It's a great way to have an experience abroad, a cultural experience abroad, while also still building that professional experience. So I studied abroad as an exchange student in Beirut, and the one thing that I wish I did was add an internship experience to my studies. So that was one thing that I didn't do that, I definitely recommend students take advantage of that opportunity. So when we think about doing an internship abroad, we kind of talk about these 4 I's. So the experience being immersive, it's definitely a very immersive cultural experience because you'll be engaging directly with locals through your internship host. It's integrated with your academics. So there is an academic component to the program, which we can speak to in a bit as well. Our programs are very individualized and personalized. So if you're looking for a very customized individual experience, an international internship program is a great fit, rather than kind of moving in a cohort of other international students on a traditional study abroad experience. An internship feels a lot more individualized. And it's definitely an impactful experience. So not only will you be adding experience abroad on your resume, you'll be adding professional experience abroad on your resume, which is really impactful for your future career planning, future interviews, whether they're for additional internships or for job opportunities. So I spoke a little bit to that direct connection to the local network, but that is one of the key benefits and one of the key pieces that students always speak to as being really valuable for both their professional network as well as their personal network and that cultural experience. Sometimes you can feel like you're in a pod of other American students when you study abroad, and that connection to a local host is a really great way to meet locals and really gain some more layered perspective of place and people while you're abroad. So it is kind of 2 experiences at one time. I know COVID has interrupted so many of your schedules, so you may have been hoping to study abroad and then maybe do a local internship or an internship abroad. This is a great way to package all of those experiences into one opportunity. Our global internship programs also kind of organically attract a more diverse cohort than study abroad. The trend in study abroad is that it's mostly white women traveling abroad. So that's like the biggest demographic. But in our global internship programs, we notice that the program attracts a more diverse cohort. So we have a lot more male students participate, a lot of students identifying on the LGBTQ spectrum, a lot more students of color. So it's a really diverse and dynamic cohort of peers that you'll be able to engage with. Of course, you want to build that resume and build skills as early as you can to be competitive in the job marketplace after you graduate. And it's also really helpful to try on a career path while you're still in your studies. It's really beneficial to confirm that you're on the right track and you're, heading in the right direction. That's very valuable, but it's also very valuable to learn maybe if something isn't for you and you still have time to pivot, maybe adjust your academic course plan or try on additional internships before you graduate. So both outcomes are very beneficial. And I would say we have plenty of students that fall in both boats after they go through this program. And, regardless of that outcome, the benefit is still very helpful. So these are just a couple of thoughts of why you should think about interning abroad. So who's the ideal global intern? So we kind of talk about a spectrum of a student having absolutely no idea what they want to do after graduation and a student that knows they want to do one very particular thing. So it's kind of a spectrum of ultimate flexibility and, being really rigid and specific. I would say the ideal global intern is someone that falls in the middle there on that spectrum. So a student that is flexible and open-minded. Industries can sometimes look different or operate differently in different countries. So being open-minded to that different experience, being flexible to different types of formats where you can gain transferable skills for your ultimate career goals is really important because, there can be some challenges and barriers to an international internship. So being flexible is really key. But we also want students to be really prepared and specific as well. So it's fantastic to be open-minded. We want that, but we also want you to have some idea of something that you want to explore and be really well prepared and specific about those goals as well, even if you're still in a very exploratory phase for your career planning. For our global internship programs, we primarily partner with startups and small to medium-sized businesses and organizations. So we'll always be very transparent that, you should anticipate a small environment. So hopefully that's something that you're open to. We unfortunately don't partner with large multinational corporations because they have their own internship programs that have very rigid timelines and recruitment cycles that unfortunately we can't circumnavigate. So, we partner with the smaller guys that are open to hosting international students and really engaged in providing a valuable learning experience for students.
May I ask you something here, Brooke,
Sure.
and maybe give you a little bit of break because
I'm talking fast. Sorry.
Yes, yeah. No, it's not about being fast, but it's about like dialogue mostly. Was it like how you decided to move from multinational large companies to medium size and startups, small companies? Was it like decision after with the time you made this decision with the time, or it was you understand that you cannot really expect big companies interested in internship, providing internship options for students abroad?
So it's a bit of both of a reaction out of what we found from our networks, as well as kind of intentional program development as well. So what I mean by reaction to the field is like, we're always happy to reach out to any potential leads with larger companies and organizations, but they do tend to have some red tape and barriers with their HR departments. In hosting interns, there can be some considerations in welcoming international student interns that, a large corporation would want to have, strict policies and procedures around. So they typically organize their own development pipeline and have their own programming, and they're not typically flexible to work with an outside organization like us that has our own, structured dates and requirements for hours and requirements for supervision. So that's kind of out of a reaction to response from larger organizations. But then we also really want it to be an academic experience for students where they have direct supervision and they have direct ownership over projects and responsibilities. So typically, a smaller environment allows for students to have a more in-depth project experience and a more varied experience, a chance to try on a couple of different hats and participate in a couple of different types of projects to have a more impactful experience. So a bit of both. But thank you for the question. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so to get back to our ideal global intern, we also, want students to come in with an understanding of their fields of interest, and be able to articulate that understanding and have some realistic expectations over what they would be qualified for at this stage in their academics and their career planning. So I'll often encourage students to do some market research, some industry research in their field of interest, in their location of interest, so that you have that context and can reinforce expectations that will help set for you with your own research as well. And then I would also say our ideal candidate for a global internship program is a student that really prioritizes their academic and career-oriented goals for the best possible internship placement for them over a preference for location. Of course, we want to include all those preferences in your selection for a program, but I would say, most of our students are most interested in, having their dream internship related to business, and they are open to whatever location will support that goal. So that's something that we do like to see from students.
Yeah, in
So
general, being open-minded. I
yeah,
remember I had an internship in Irish company in Dublin, and it was small public relations company, but they happened to be a subcontractor for oh my God, for one of the IT giants. So, and that was very beneficial. I didn't expect that.
yeah, I would say we do have some students that have an internship with a smaller entity, like if they support larger named brands and larger named clients. So that would be typically the most likely way to be working on, a bigger name project, is through kind of a smaller agency setting that either subcontracts or has those bigger brands as a client. So that can definitely happen as well. So to jump into the structure of our program, I'll share a bit of the basics about the program and where we offer this as well, and some more detail about those locations. But our summer global internship program is an 8-week program. It's primarily a full-time English language internship experience. We classify full-time as being roughly 225 to 300 total internship hours. That's what's required on our syllabus for the course that is included in the program. Students often can exceed that minimum requirement, as the expectation is that you're a full-time intern, but hopefully that's helpful. I'm sorry if my headset is. So in addition to the full-time internship, there is an online course, and I'll share more information about that as well. And the eligibility for the program is a 2.5 GPA and having completed at least your freshman year prior to the start of the program. The program is priced globally around all of our locations at $6,750. So that also helps students pick the location that's the best fit for their goals rather than focusing on price. Included in that program price are all the inclusions that you'll see here. Importantly, housing is included, cultural activities, professional development activities. You'll have an on-site orientation as well as a pre-departure orientation. And a lot of great support services. So you'll work with our team prior to departure to identify your internship, and you'll also have access to that team on site. So if you're facing any challenges in your internship, you have that support there to directly offer you strategies to be successful on your own, or for us to step in if needed. And so in addition to that on-program support, you'll also have 24/7 emergency support as well on site. Our programs do have staff on the ground in all of our locations. So you can share that, with any concerned family or friends that want to make sure that you'll be safe abroad. So to just speak to the course a little bit, our program is designed for 6 semester credits, and the course includes the internship's hours within. So it's kind of an all or nothing style program where you could, have 0 credits or 6 credits for completing both the internship and the course. The course is actually very manageable, and it is delivered in a hybrid format. So the course components are all online, and they're delivered in an asynchronous format, so you can manage your schedule in your internship that will best suit you and your supervisor, and your free time of enjoying your city as well. So that's a really nice delivery format, but basically the course is designed to be a reflective professional development framework so that you can actively reflect on your experience and see the learning as it's happening. I know when I studied abroad, I kind of felt like it happened in a vacuum. When I came home, I was like, well, that happened. How do I unpack it and understand what it means for me? And so this course really helps you do that as the experience is ongoing. So I, students are always like, can I avoid the course in any way? There's no way to avoid it, and you will find it very helpful to you. So hopefully that's reassuring. But if anyone has any questions about the inclusions of the program, feel welcome to drop it in the chat. I'm not sure if I can see it, so if you could just, let me know if there's any questions coming in, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I will let you know. I keep an eye on both Q&A and the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. So these are all of our summer global internship locations. So we have several options in Europe, Asia, and one location in Africa in Cape Town. So we do have a wide variety of opportunities. I won't be able to speak to all of the locations today, but I did pick out some of our kind of more popular locations to speak to them in more detail later on in the presentation. But while I'm here, I would love to just point out that all of the global internship programs are designed to be English language in nature, but in Barcelona and in Seville, we offer two formats. So if anyone is interested in having like a Spanish language immersion professional development experience, we can support that in both locations. The program structure is a little bit different. Well, you will be in an advanced Spanish course and more of a part-time internship, so a reduced number of total hours. But that's a great option. That the Spanish language version of the program does have a minimum requirement of 4 semesters of Spanish or equivalent skill level, but that's a great way to engage your local language skills in Spain in particular, if that's of interest to you. And now I would say in our other locations where English is not the local language, you shouldn't be concerned about a language barrier because we're experienced in offering English language opportunities. But with that being said, if you are practicing a local language in those other cities, like if you're practicing German or you're learning Cantonese or Mandarin or what have you, Japanese, we can try to facilitate an opportunity that will allow you to engage those skills depending on your skill level. So, and that honestly, having local language skills can expand opportunities in those locations for you as well. So something to consider. In addition to the summer global internship offerings, I did mention that we have a semester version of the program as well in a reduced number of locations. So our semester global internship options include Berlin, London, Shanghai, Sydney, Singapore, Tokyo, and Kyoto will be a new location as well. So if that's of interest, you can always reach out to me at the end with my email address, and I'm happy to send more information on our semester programs for you. In addition to our summer global internship programs, we also offer virtual internship programs. So if you're not quite ready to travel abroad, but you want to have an international professional development experience while staying at home, we can also support you on that as well. So lots of different options here at CIEE to engage and expand your global network. So in thinking ahead about how you might be able to prepare and participate in one of these programs, I would just like to mention you should utilize the resources on campus that you have for any financial aid guidance or any scholarship and grant guidance that you might have through campus or otherwise. But CIEE does also offer scholarships and grants as well. And so when you start an application with us, there'll be a question on if you're interested to apply for either or a scholarship or a grant. And based on your answer to that question, that application will populate for you within your program application. We have a couple of great options for Pell students. So if you hold Pell status, the need-based grant opportunities, the first two at the top, are pretty much guaranteed for you, assuming you apply on time. So the Gilman Go Global grant is a piggyback opportunity. to the outside funding opportunity through the Benjamin Gilman Foundation. If you show proof to CIEE that you applied to the Benjamin Gilman, we will offer you funds off of your program cost just for simply showing proof of applying. So regardless of what the Benjamin Gilman Foundation decides on that application, we'll give you an award. So you potentially might get 2 awards there. So that's a great opportunity. And then the GAIN travel grant helps subsidize your airfare, as that's not a fee included in our program cost and is one of the more expensive additional expenses to budget for. And then we do offer a merit-based PING scholarship, which is a competitive scholarship, but I do encourage everybody to apply for an additional potential off your program cost. So for our process, if you're thinking about doing a program next summer, I encourage you to start engaging with the University of Houston Study Abroad office to just get the academic advising and understand any policies and procedures and deadlines on campus, and then prioritize our application as a second focus area for you. You will want to have that conversation with Houston first so that you can know how to know which advisor will be the correct advisor to list on your CIEE application. And then just be aware that on the CIEE application, we'll ask you to start to articulate your internship goals and interests at that stage. So it's important to be reflective about that in advance. Once you apply and you're accepted to the program, then we'll begin our pre-placement process. And so we'll invite you to schedule a one-on-one pre-placement meeting with our center staff in the city that you'll be traveling to. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss your internship goals in depth. So we'll ask that you communicate 3 top interest areas, and we'll want to talk about your goals and interests and qualifications related in each area. So the meetings are typically about 20 minutes, so you'll want to be pretty well prepared in that conversation. It is an informal conversation where you can be open and honest with CIEE staff. We're here to help you and be your partner in identifying your best internship opportunity. So that conversation can be a dialogue back and forth where center staff may recommend that you consider some other areas that maybe you hadn't thought of, or they may provide some feedback on your current qualifications. And you'll really want to focus on the skills that you want to develop and the projects that would interest you in that conversation. And then we'll base our outreach off of that dialogue more so than anything that you've put on your application prior to. During that meeting, you may also get some resume revision guidance as well, and we'll help you finalize your resume so it's in a format expected of employers in the city that you'll be traveling to.
So if this is correct, by the end of the program, the participant, the applicant, the student, the intern will come back with a ready-made resume, which he or she can send out to start the employment search process, right? Or maybe not just one, maybe 2 or 3 resumes, right?
So it will actually kind of be a 2-step process. So right now I'm speaking to the pre-program phase. So we do need a resume to identify your internship placement for the program itself. So we will go through an initial resume revision and a resume prep with students prior to departure and prior to the interview process with the local employer. But then again, on program and during the course, towards the end of the program, you'll work on an e-portfolio. So students will update their resume with the bullet points of their experience from their internship and collect a work sample and a recommendation from their supervisor so that you have those materials already updated by the time you're home, and you can then leverage that for your future applications. So it happens twice, at the beginning and at the end. And so we go through this pre-placement process before you even commit to the program, really just to make sure that we're being as transparent and understanding all your goals and moving forward, with everybody on the same page. And so after you have that meeting, we ask that you confirm your participation to the program. And then once you confirm participation, that's when we'll start sending your resume out and looking for a match for your internship and facilitating an interview process. So we do want students to confirm their internship prior to departure so that when you arrive on site, you can attend orientation for a day or two and then jump right into your internship in that very first week in the case of most locations. So placements are confirmed, after you have virtual interviews. I would say most locations typically offer multiple interviews, like 1 to 3 interviews. In some locations where the visa process is really lengthy and time consuming, we typically try to make the best match on the first try as best as possible. So that's true in London and Singapore, locations that have a lengthy visa process. My next slide here is just another visualization of that placement process and what you can expect. So once you're enrolled, the one-on-one meeting, individual coaching is needed. We'll begin coordinating the matching process for you. We'll help you move through the visa process as appropriate for your location. We'll support you with an online pre-departure with center staff so you can meet your center staff more in depth and get to know the basics that you should be prepped for before your arrival. You'll attend an on-site orientation when you arrive, and then you'll start your internship, and we'll be checking in with you all throughout that experience and supporting you with a final review and assessment. So my next section of the presentation, I'm going to focus on a couple of cities and what you can expect from them. But before I dive into that, there are a couple of notes worth mentioning. So kind of start with the bad news first and then jump into the good news of what's going to be possible for you. But these are all fields that have some challenges or limitations around them. So I love to just advise on them early. And most of this advising will be location agnostic. So kind of general advising across the board. So if you happen to be a health sciences student or you're pre-med or you're interested in the field of healthcare, an international internship can pose challenges for your field of interest. So, we still certainly work with students that are pre-med and on the health track, but you want to just be really open-minded and start thinking outside the box regarding opportunities that you might be interested in. Unfortunately, we can't offer anything in a clinical capacity. There's immigration, privacy, and security laws that prohibit international students from engaging with patients or having access to patient information. So unfortunately, the clinical setting is off limits, but we have had students work with nonprofits and NGOs that have a health and wellness oriented mission or community health oriented mission, a public health advocacy and education oriented mission. So that typically tends to be one of the areas of most success related. We also have worked with students that were interested in kind of innovations for the healthcare industry. So digital health technologies, think wearable technologies, those health trackers that you can wear, wellness,
for example,
apps.
also, right?
I'm sorry?
Telemedicine.
Telemedicine, yep. Softwares for healthcare administration.
Yeah, healthcare administration was my question. It's not immediate access to patients, but how it's managed, how you can manage all the entire system. So maybe it's less restrictive.
It's a little less restricted. It can still be challenging to be in a healthcare administration related role, but rarely it has occurred. Like, for example, I remember some past global interns in Singapore, they were able to do a research project in a hospital setting where their goal was to understand if implementing a call center would be a benefit to take that pressure and stress off of the nurses, and how they could implement and manage that implementation of a new call center in the hospital. So that was kind of a unique healthcare administration opportunity that was available. I would say that they're quite rare, and it's more likely to be in like a tech company or a software company that may be developing software for the healthcare admin clientele. So if you're open-minded, it can still work out on the program, but do just want to be transparent about the limitations there. Now for engineering, we do work with a lot of great engineering students and certainly have a lot of great engineering opportunities around the world. I just generally advise engineers to be open to the general field of engineering. So if you're in a niche area of engineering, whether it's like biotech engineering or, electrical engineering, I recommend just being open to the field of engineering. It can open more doors for you, and it can just be a little bit difficult for us to guarantee a niche. We can always try, but I do want to just expect your expectations to be flexible in the field. And also, if you're going to a location that's the local language is not English, I encourage you to be open to a hybrid opportunity that may include technical projects and business projects, where you might liaison that technical expertise and knowledge that you have with, like, say, a marketing team that's going to be marketing the product. This is particularly helpful because oftentimes technical teams will engage in the local language. So in order for you to have a robust experience, you'll sometimes have projects that are both technical and business in nature. Now, government and politics is also an area that's limited by security and other immigration laws. So typically students can't engage directly in these capacities. I would say London is probably our best location to potentially have a chance to be in that space. But just think about the transferable skills that's going to be helpful for you for a career in government and politics, whether that's communication, PR, writing, and other environments that you can gain those skills. We also sometimes have opportunities with like think tanks or NGOs and nonprofits that may be, lobbying for different government services or filling a gap for different government services. So that can be an alternative area to consider as well. Law is also a very challenging field because it's typically in the local language, and law can be operate differently in different countries, and the educational system tends to be very different. So whereas here you would first pursue your undergrad degree and then go pursue a JD program for law school, abroad oftentimes students are declaring their track focus in law at the same age time as you're pursuing your undergraduate degree. So you're going up against local competition that's just a little bit more experienced on an academic front. So that can be an area of challenge. Again, London tends to be the location that sometimes offers opportunities in that space. But again, encourage you to think about alternative areas where you can gain transferable skills and exposure. And then finance tends to be the most competitive industry in all of our locations. So I typically encourage finance students to be open to project opportunities that are quantitative in nature and kind of a general business type of setting. So business modeling, forecasting in a business setting, looking at new market opportunities and forecasting related to that. So we can certainly work with finance students. If you're looking for a finance role, typically need previous experience or be upper level in your academics. If that's not you, just be a bit more open and flexible to gaining those quantitative skills in another setting in the business environment. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a bad news first and was helpful to set your expectations. But I can hop into some other cities unless there's any questions I can answer about this.
I don't think it's just not bad news, but probably like about managing our expectations. Yes. And just getting real. Also, yeah. We also always advise our students when we start search with them, we check if the initial check shows 0 results for their major, and we tell them like, don't be discouraged. Yeah, let's look at a bigger scale and let's look what else do you want to study. Like I had a student just recently who stepped in, it was a walk-in consultation. So, and he was like, I really want to go to Japan. And he is computer science. And I told him like, if it is your dream, and there is no computer science, we found immediately, but I'm sure there is an education abroad program for him. But I said, how about studying Japanese in Japan? Or how about studying Japanese culture, like your elective? And he liked the idea.
Yeah, there's
So
always ways to think outside the box and expand, absolutely. Well, if that student hasn't found a program yet, we can absolutely support his computer science interest in Tokyo on the global internship program.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to spotlight a few locations, and just some things to know about those locations. So hopefully that'll be of interest, and then go into some questions. So I'll move through a couple locations for you that are some of our most popular. So London tends to be one of our most popular locations because it has a similar work culture to the United States, and there's no language barrier in the work culture. So it's often one of our larger cohorts of students. We have a ton of different opportunities under the business umbrella, the entrepreneurship and innovation umbrella. It's a great location for communications, PR, events, marketing, advertising, media, lots of great options in the NGO space as well as the art space as well. But it can be a competitive city. So our program isn't necessarily competitive. We want to work with and support as many students as we can. But you may find throughout the interview process for your internship that it can feel competitive. And then once you're on site, it can feel like a competitive work environment as well. But that's always good, especially when you're learning. So London's always a great location. I would say our location in Sydney also has a very similar work culture to the United States as well. So if you're looking to, focus on gaining experience, but you're concerned about any language barriers, these are good options for you. One of our other very popular locations is Berlin in Germany. Berlin is kind of our tech hub, if you will. So if you are interested to head to Germany, just anticipate an internship with a startup. You'll likely be working right alongside the founders of that startup. They tend to be founded by expats. Berlin is one of the cities with the most expats in the world. And so you'll have an English speaking supervisor and likely several colleagues that are strong in their English language as well. And there's a lot of great hubs around innovation and entrepreneurship. So there's a lot of industry knowledge sharing that occurs, and our center staff are great at plugging you into those opportunities to engage with and exchange ideas with the innovators in the city. The startup scene tends to lean towards tech and software, but there can be other opportunities related to like sustainability and environment, but definitely kind of primarily a startup focused city. But that's a great way to experience a flat organizational culture, and you'll be able to engage with all of your colleagues on a similar level. And so, that's really helpful if you're particularly not quite sure what you want to do and you want to try on a couple of different projects and maybe engage with a technical team for one project and engage with a marketing team for another project and engage with business for another project. So it's a great place to have that kind of flexibility for different style opportunities. If you were to intern in Berlin, a couple of things to just know is like the communication style can be pretty direct. So you may kind of hear more feedback when you can improve upon something and less feedback when you've done a good job. But as long as you're kind of aware that's a cultural difference, then it makes sense in the long run. But
I think it's very natural for a business field at all.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you are doing your job great and everything is fine. Once in a while you made some mistake or something went a little bit wrong, and immediately
you find out. Yeah, someone tells you. Yeah, that's true. Definitely, and it's a good skill to build is resiliency and an openness to feedback and criticism. That's something that you'll experience throughout your early career anyway. So it's always good to get your feet wet in that and learn how to approach feedback and integrate that into your style moving forward.
I understand that once students start the internship, they have plethora of advice like this, like yes. Advice or tips or just like introduction to business culture in a specific environment, in a specific country, in a specific city.
Yes. So during your pre-departure orientation, our center staff will help set your expectations as to what to anticipate. And then when you arrive on site for orientation, they'll also include a best practices component to that orientation as well, where they'll go into more of these kind of cultural nuances better than I could. I haven't lived in Berlin or London, so they will kind of share what to anticipate and expect. Of course, every internship site is going to have a different culture as well. But if we've worked with that partner for years, we might be able to give you a sense of any kind of organizational cultural trends. And then once you start your internship, you'll be actively reflecting on the cultural nuances that you're seeing in your course. And if you're facing any challenges or, you want to come together to celebrate success, our staff and your cohort of peers will be there to support you in that as well. So absolutely. So Cape Town, our only offering in Africa, is a great location for students interested in the nonprofit space, social innovation, social services, public health, community engagement, lots of great opportunities in Cape Town for that. I would say Cape Town's typically my top recommendation for students that are really interested in public health as an alternative for health or pre-med focus. Although worth noting that it will be winter in Cape Town during our summer. So just something to be aware and prepared for. But Cape Town's a really great city. Our center staff typically like to just advise students to be really flexible and open-minded as they head to Cape Town. Typically when students start internships, their tasks at the initial first weeks can be smaller and more focused, but that's just usually a test to understand your professionalism and your quality of work, and then you'll earn greater exposure in projects after those initial tasks. So it's important to treat those with enthusiasm. And then another piece that our center staff always likes to advise around is really respecting the host culture. Business can be done a little bit differently in Cape Town. So it's important to be mindful of that and understand that you're not on the program to bring your American ideas and implement them in a business in Cape Town. You're there to learn from folks in Cape Town and see how they engage in business, and understand that it may be different, but it's not on a scale of what's best, and to just really take that experience to observe local culture and engage in local culture and make relationships in that local culture. So just a couple of things to consider as you're heading to Cape Town. Great city, beautiful city. You can see Table Mountain in the back there. Oftentimes our center staff guide students on a hike there as well. Prague is also one of our cities that's smaller and tends to be a smaller cohort, but students always rank their experience highest in Prague. I think it could be a mix of that smaller cohort impact as well as our fantastic staff in Prague as well. So I always like to spotlight Prague just because of those great student stories that I hear after the program. But in Prague, opportunities tend to, be in the smaller style environment. So interns are really valued team members and have real responsibilities and projects in that setting. So I think that also impacts students having a great experience there because they have really contributed in meaningful ways. But similar to other locations in Europe, can be direct feedback and assertive communication. So something to just be prepared for. I have just a couple more, I think. So just to spotlight 2 locations in Asia, our location in Shanghai and Singapore, which I'll speak to next, both have really competitive work cultures. And so the traditional business hours in Asia tend to be longer than here in the United States. So I just advise students to anticipate really long work weeks, but if you're motivated by that and enthusiastic, you can have really great experiences in Asia. It is a bit more of a hierarchical structure. So, a lot of the experience in Shanghai is about the intern being a direct reflection on the supervisor. So, building that trust is really important to be professional and reliable with your supervisor. That's really important. And really you'll be a reflection on your supervisor across the whole company. So that's something to keep in mind. And similar to our other locations, you can start with smaller projects and earn your way to larger learning opportunities in that environment. And you may experience a mix of both direct and indirect communication styles. So you'll want to kind of prepare and be conscious that there may be some reading between the lines that you need to do if there's any indirect communication with your supervisor. Singapore is one of our most popular locations. We're really excited to have Singapore back on offer. It is a highly competitive city. So again, while the program isn't competitive, you'll feel that competitiveness, certainly on site and also potentially during the interview process as well. In Singapore, there's no like natural resources. So the resource that is available is human labor. So that's what contributes to that really competitive society and work culture. So just keep that in mind, that you'll always want to be putting your best foot forward in Singapore, and really working hard. You'll be competing against local Singaporean students that have grown up in this society and culture. So, you just want to bring your best self to your interview process and your best self to your internship as well. Looks like I have one more. Tokyo, another really popular location for us as well. We typically focus our internship opportunities in these 4 kind of umbrella areas of business, communications, NGOs, and tech. In Tokyo, there can be other opportunities, but these are the most popular, because certainly having some Japanese skills will expand your opportunities in Tokyo, but these umbrella areas tend to be most available for English speakers. But hopefully that gets you excited about some of our offerings available. But it was a little bit of a speed round, so I'm always happy to answer questions. You can shoot me a direct email here. The email I've included here, inquire@ciee.org, can be really helpful if you're debating across, all of CIEE programs. If you have a couple programs in mind, they advise for all programs and can be really helpful in helping you make a decision. But if you want to check out our internship offerings, this is a quick link for that as well. But I'm happy to take any questions here.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. That was very, very useful. And as you said, a very fast journey around the
Yes.
world, not 80 days around the world, but like 1 hour around the world. Thank you so much. I admire every location you covered. And there is a question here. If there are internship options available for J1 visa holders?
Great question. So a J1 visa holder, but you're studying, would you be on an F1 visa if you're an international student at Houston?
International student in Houston, I guess.
Yeah, so we do welcome international students to apply to our programs. Most of our visa-oriented advising is definitely geared more towards US citizens. So on that facet, you'll want to just be prepared to kind of be responsible to navigate your visa process and research if you're eligible for a visa in the country that you're applying to. We'll certainly support you with any supporting materials that may be required to pursue that process. But generally, yes, if you're eligible for a visa in the country that you are interested to apply to, you are welcome to do so. And then I would just consult the international students office at Houston as well as the study abroad office, because there may be some considerations with them being your sponsor that you just want to be aware of those policies and any academic policies as well. So it'll just be a little bit of a layered process for you, but possible, yes.
I guess it will.
Oh, you muted.
I guess it will be a layered process for either J1 or F1 applicants.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Well, may I ask you to move back to the Tokyo slide, because I have a surprise for you here.
Sure. Okay.
Actually, we have one participant here today, and her name is Yulia, who is CIEE alumna.
Oh, great.
She just graduated from CIEE program in Japan. She is not an intern, but
yeah.
Hi, Yulia, you there? Can you just
I'm here.
I hope you can activate your camera. Okay, I made you a co-host for that.
Okay.
All right, so I
There
guess
we
it's
go.
just hi, thanks for joining us today, and thank you, Brooke, again. I guess I just invited Yulia today to participate in this discussion, in this meeting, because she is fresh off CIEE program and she had amazing experience to share. We are discussing her presentation sometime in fall, perhaps in October, about her experience. Yulia, can you tell us some words about how it was with CIEE? CIEE, I am very sorry.
It always happens.
With CIEE.
Yeah, working with CIEE was really cool. Like, everybody there was just so helpful. So I had Julia and Hazuki and Atsuko for the Tokyo, Japan Spring 2021 for Arts and Sciences at Sophia University. So it was really cool getting to work with them. They were super nice. Everybody was super helpful. I got to learn Japanese, well, like basic beginnings of Japanese, and I got to take a pop cultures class. And since I'm a digital arts major, I had to have like around 4 art histories. So I ended up taking quite a few art histories there, and I got credit, and it was just really cool. It was a really good experience working with everyone there.
Yeah. Our center staff are so fantastic in Tokyo. So I'm glad you enjoyed working with them. And is it Julia Pons that you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, so Julia is fantastic on our enrollment team supporting pre-departure.
Yeah,
so.
every time I had a question, she'd be like, I got you.
Yeah, she knows more than me. So I often ask Julia questions as well. But I'm glad you enjoyed your experience.
Was it difficult for you to decide upon the program, Yulia?
Not really. In high school, I had I've always been interested in Japanese pop culture. So at that point I was like, I want to learn Japanese, but I feel like it's hard for me to learn Japanese on my own. And so I was thinking, okay, well, if I could take it in a classroom setting, that would be great. And if I could get it with to get some of my credits for my degree, that would be even better. So that was what I kind of looked into, and the arts and sciences was the first one to pop up, and I looked into it and I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming over today, saying hello, and we will stay in touch, and we hopefully will host your presentation in October about your experience in Japan with CIEE. I don't know what's wrong with my mind.
Well, it's all the vowels together. Yes.
Let me just open the floor and say thank you very much, Brooke, again. And maybe we have some questions from our attendees, and maybe we already covered the question about the J1, F1 applicants for internship, international. Maybe Denise has a question, or Tamli. Maybe Yulia, you have a question. Do you, is this presentation, I'm sure it inspired you for your internship in Japan now, because I know you are convinced that you must be in Japan at some point again.
Yes, I decided after I got my bachelor's, or just looking around during that time, I really do want to intern in Japan. So now that I learned some basics Japanese and I'm kind of familiar with certain things, I feel a little more confident in myself, and I'm like, okay, I think I can officially try to just involve myself more in that. And hopefully if I can get a job doing graphic design or an internship doing graphic design stuff, I can incorporate Japanese or Japanese pop culture or just Japanese culture in general into my designs or stuff like that, and just learn how to network more with everybody there.